Macca's Guides.
Hey guys, Macca here with a video about The Division 2. I got a chance to play a fair bit of it at a Ubisoft event during E3. I got a chance to play on Xbox, but also played on PC, which is the footage that you are watching. For those of you who might have missed the press conference, The Division 2 comes out on March 15th, 2019. Now, I wanted to start off by kind of explaining some of the cool new features that I thought were noticeable in the demo that I played, talk about what's different, what's kind of the same, and then end off the video with some of my general impressions. Now, there's a small new change happening on screen right now, and that's the ability to kind of scan an enemy to see what they're up to. So I scan this guy, you can see he's about to execute a hostage, so we're going to set up and kill them. That's just something slightly minor that I believe they added. Now, the first thing you might have seen right off the bat once the video started was it showed off what class I was. And I was the Survivalist class, and that is kind of a new big system in The Division 2. The other classes include the Demolitionist as well, or the Demolition guy, as well as a Sharpshooter. So in my class, the Survivalist, I have this cool signature weapon. Each class has its own signature weapon. And for me, it's this explosive bolt crossbow, which is super OP and extremely fun to use. For the Sharpshooter, they have a 50 cal sniper rifle, which does massive amounts of damage if you're able to get a headshot on a boss, for example. And then I think the Demolitionist has like a grenade launcher, which is pretty cool too. I got a chance to actually try all three, which was dope. And each of them also have skills that apply to them. And all of the signature weapons, you carry 3 weapons with you in the game. Your primary, your secondary, and your signature weapon. And each of the signature weapons are accessed by like holding Y. And the ammo for those is this like specific blue ammo you're going to pick up that randomly drops from enemies as you kill them. So it's pretty limited. You can't just kind of, hoard that special ammo and then use it all at the end. You kind of can only carry a little bit, and it's pretty rare. So that's a whole new kind of system they have incorporated in it. Now, in this next area, you kind of see that we try to set up for a bit of a stealth approach with a little bit of an ambush style game plan here. We can scan the enemies to kind of mark them and figure out where they are, and then everyone can kind of shoot at once. You see my explosive arrow bolts in action as well, which are pretty dope. Now, the one thing that I noticed that stood out the most to me in this game in terms of differences from The Division 1 were the enemy AI. Overall, we kind of had a pretty tough time. A lot of our guys went down. There was a lot of reviving. Teams actually failed, and if you watch a lot of other people's gameplay, you'll notice that a lot of teams did really struggle to get through this demo. And that is because of the AI. They're not bullet sponges as much as they used to be, but they are a lot smarter. In Division 1, a lot of them would kind of just hide behind a certain, fixture, and more or less it would be kind of a standoff. You'd be sitting back and waiting for them to poke their head so you could shoot them and, standing behind cover. But in the Division 2, I noticed in this demo quite a bit that they would often try to flank the outside of your team to try to get a couple shots off. They seemed a lot more deadly. They would kind of play with each other a lot more, so they were kind of working as a team. And I found that it was a lot more difficult to kind of stay alive with the AI in the way it is now in the Division 2. Obviously, you're going to want to work together as a team and get lots of angles. Make sure you're focusing on the crit areas, especially for the bosses, which are basically invulnerable unless you hit them in the crit areas. And another thing that kind of stood out to me was weapon balancing. So obviously I got to play all of the classes, and I found that all of them were very effective in their own different ways. Whereas in the Division 1, I felt like there was always kind of one gun or one class of guns you would always gravitate towards because they were just so much better than the rest. But in this case, I found that like the LMG, for example, when you first start shooting it, you miss almost all of your bullets because they're super, super inaccurate. But once you kind of get your gun spinning, you start hitting, more accurately, start hitting for more damage, especially if you're hitting those crits. So I found kind of all of the classes were pretty helpful, and I found that the game was pretty difficult. I don't know if it was because it was kind of our first time playing, in a while, but like managing your med kits and managing your abilities and the revives and, all of that stuff, it felt more difficult than I remember the Division 1 being. Because you would think you were in cover, and like I said earlier, you would either get flanked, you would get grenaded. Oftentimes, if you bunched up too much with your teammates, all of the AI would kind of focus on that one area to try to take everyone out at once. But yeah, that's kind of the impression that I got. I felt like the weapons were balanced. The AI was really tuned up to play a lot differently than I remember it, and working together was pretty important. Now, another thing that I want to talk about really briefly was about the raids, which they announced at the E3 press conference for 8 people. However, I tried to get a little bit more information out of some of the devs there, and they didn't really have much else to say, which is a little unfortunate. Now, in terms of my gameplay impressions, I quite enjoyed The Division 1, so I'll start by saying that. Now, a lot of people had problems with all of the enemies being bullet sponges, and they had problems with the end games. I didn't find those problems to be maybe as significant as the general gamer. I found that I had a lot of fun with the game for about 60 hours, and the bullet sponge nature of the game seemed to kind of fit what they were going for in terms of the kind of, MMORPG shooter style of game The Division 1 was supposed to be. Now, the enemies are a lot less bullet spongy in general, which I think most people are really going to enjoy, and it makes the combat feel a lot faster and tighter, and there's a lot more moment-to-moment decision-making, which I thought was pretty cool. The other thing I was kind of unsure about was I always figured the Division 2 would still be set in like a winter, but obviously this game is set 6 months after that, so it's pretty much the dead of summer in Washington, D.C., and surprisingly, it works out great for the game. I quite liked being in the summer. The graphics are still incredible. The audio is still pretty good. Generally, it does still feel like The Division, which is, definitely something that most people are going to want to know about. Like, they haven't completely reinvented the wheel with this game. It's still 100% definitely The Division. It still feels like that game, but it feels tighter and it feels faster, and overall, I really enjoyed my time with it. But if you really didn't enjoy The Division 1, there's probably not enough here for you to enjoy The Division 2. Maybe they will address the endgame problems the game had. Maybe the raids will definitely be like something to grind towards and a perfect end goal on how to end the game. But it felt good, it felt tight, the decision making was fun, the team play was exciting, some of the signature weapons and classes were kind of fun to play around with. And overall, I had a pretty good time, and I'm looking forward to it. So hopefully those impressions kind of help you decide whether this game is for you or not. Like I said, I enjoyed my time with it, and it was fun. I will leave you guys with the last 2 minutes of the demo with the in-game audio. Thank you so much for watching. A special thanks to the amazing people on Patreon for supporting the show, and hopefully I see you guys next time. Peace.
Another agent is joining your team. Division agent is down. Vitals at critical levels. Vitals are at dangerous levels. Vitals are critical. Emergency procedures required.
Alright, let's lock this place down in case they try to take it back. Taking that control point out of action is going to make a huge difference for the settlement. They needed this.